I'll tell you how I'd like to start. If for anybody who is interested in my work, I think my path is a good way to start, particularly for anyone who is also looking to do this work as you are as a growing hypnotist. And I, in no way ever, as I got into hypnosis, thought, boy, I'm going to heal cancer with hypnosis. It wasn't even considered back then. The only people on the planet in the early 80s that I was aware of doing anything to align hypnosis with physical healing, it was a husband and wife medical doctor team in Texas who had been using hypnosis and guided imagery. The video game of the day was Pac-Man, and they were having the cancer patients imagine little Pac-Men running around their body, eating up the cancer cells. And other than that one guided imagery technique being used by this husband-wife team, both MDs, I have never found anybody who is, or in that time, aware of anyone trying to use hypnosis to heal cancer. So when I got into it for sales improvement. I was a salesman doing straight commission sales, and someone suggested that hypnosis could help for sales improvement. And I took a couple sessions myself, and my sales figures went through the roof. I was outselling everybody else in the company and did that for a number of consecutive months. And the company made a new position of regional sales trainer, put me in that position, and said basically teach them to do what you do. And I just basically said, I went to a hypnotist. I don't know how to apply what happened there to the staff. I knew the management, the bosses wouldn't want to hear that. So I went to another hypnotist, sat in the chair, had them do a sales improvement session on me. I resisted the state, memorized every word the guy said, ran out into my car, and wrote down the words. In the first visit, I got about a third of what we would now know as the patter. I got about a third of the patter written down, went back another day, resisted the hypnotic state, memorized the words, ran out to the car, and I got the second third. And of course, by 3 trips, I had his entire patter script written down. And I had a unique way of using it in my facilities. When I would go back to work, I'd say, look, you've been doing these sales training meetings every morning for years, and they get a little boring. If you would ever lay your head down on the desk and fall asleep for any of the other managers, you'd get fired. But I know that people learn best when they're relaxed, and they seem to feel that nothing goes into the mind when we're tense. So I want everybody to be relaxed. And so if you want to lay your head down on the desk or let your head fall forward and your chin rest on your chest, allowed to close your eyes. The only thing I want you to know is you all know how Stan Mitchell's Turbo Volvo sounds when he pulls up to the front of the office. I need you to stay just awake enough so that if Stan's car pulls up to the front of the building, you can pop your head up and act like you've been awake and alert for me the whole time. And of course, Sasha, you know what I've done there without using the word hypnosis. I just perfectly describe a nice medium to deep state of hypnotic trance. So from there, I'd say, everybody here, take a nice deep breath as you exhale. Let your eyes close down, let your head roll forward. If you want to let your chin rest on your chest or your head rest on the desk, take your choice. But just make sure you get yourself nice and relaxed. And with a little bit of deepening, everybody would be in a nice state of trance. And I would start rattling off a combination. I had blended together that hypnotist's sales pattern along with the sales training that we would do traditionally in the company. And any facility that I walked into, the sales figures went through the roof. I left that company, went out on my own as a consultant, and started working with stockbrokers on the east coast of Florida. And as I started doing the sales improvement hypnosis with the salesman in Florida, I would get cards and letters from wives of the stockbrokers saying, my husband didn't tell you, but he's been viciously addicted to cocaine. It's ruined our marriage. It's cost us all our money. I think it's why his career's been doing so poorly. And since he's been working with you, he stopped doing the cocaine. I've got my husband back. Thank you so much. And I had a number of those situations occur. And I thought, boy, cocaine addiction is supposed to be pretty hard to heal. I'm healing it without trying. What if I tried? So I became an addiction specialist. And it was along this point where, through my own studies, I advanced from the idea of direct suggestion hypnosis and got totally into regression hypnosis. So as I got better and better with the regression technique, that some of which I had studied and appreciated from others, and of course, like anybody else would, started blending in my own concepts and understandings and beliefs, and making it uniquely mine. And that was all done out of desperation. So when I'm working with ever tougher ills, each addiction case seemed to get more intense. The traditional wouldn't work, and I'd have to say, boy, why did that fail? What did I miss? What did the mind not respond to? How can we fix that? And it was out of that kind of troubleshooting on tougher cases. I didn't give up on the case. I didn't say my stuff can't apply. I said to myself, there is a way. I just got to crack the code and figure out what's going here and get it fixed. And I succeeded. So as I would work with ever tougher addiction cases, they would come in with a host of chronic illnesses. And here I am just doing the same regression work that I developed to heal the emptiness inside, which is, as we would see, at the cause of most addictions. And as I was tearing out those mutilation programs and limitation programs and emptiness programs running within the people, all of a sudden the chronic illnesses went away. And we know chronic illness is hard to heal. That's why doctors label it chronic. They label it chronic because traditional medicine and everything and anything they know doesn't work. So here I am healing chronic illness now. I drifted away from the addictions. I had a live radio show in Fort Lauderdale area that covered Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. So my message was being blanketed over a lot of people. And they would hear my stories of healing these chronic ills, and folks who had more weird illnesses, things the doctors really didn't even know how to label, started showing up in my office. And again, when tradition wouldn't work, I wouldn't quit. I wouldn't say that hypnosis can't help. I'd say, I believe in this mind-body connection for everything. Hippocrates, the father of Western medicine, says the body's natural tendency is that toward health, which means that there isn't an outside mutilating or limiting influence. The body should just run as we would all think of in a healthy state. So I realized it had to be something at the program level, and I would never give up. I would just continue to develop more interesting ways of getting deeper and deeper into a person's soul to find what was locked in a little closet in the corner somewhere that the normal, more traditional techniques or the earlier techniques that I had developed would have missed. And I got better and better at finding those little nooks and crannies in the client's soul where these mutilating and limiting programs were hanging out. And at one point, I had a medical doctor, an MD, a surgeon, call me for pain management. He was diagnosed with leukemia. His white cell counts were way over 500,000. And I told him I don't do pain management. That's masking that further traps inside a person the things I know to dig out. But I'll tell you this, when I get into the belly of a person's soul and I dig out those trapped emotions and programs and repressed life experience, the pain goes away. So I won't do pain management, but I'll see if I can remove what's calling for the pain, what's causing the pain, if you're interested in that. And he was a very open gentleman, about 56 years old at the time. So I put him into the chair, got him into trance, amplified the feeling, the thought cause alignments that we know go with leukemia and cancer. Something inside you feels that you don't deserve to be on this planet Earth. I'm going to count from 1 to 5. That feeling grows more real than ever. So I amplified the feeling, then I regressed off of it. And as I asked his mind to take us back to the first scene, situation, event that has everything and anything to do with this feeling, he goes into the fetal position. He turns beet red. Fluids start pouring out of every orifice on his body. And this is a story I tell in the book. I got him years later to sign off on the story and let me tell the story publicly for the book. And with all this screaming and writhing around and all these fluids pouring out of his body at an amazing rate, it was just hard to imagine how much fluid was coming out of the pores and the tear ducts and the sinuses, and saliva, just fluid everywhere around his, from his shoulders up. And the regression eventually proved, or didn't prove, we got the proof, what we thought I had witnessed and he had experienced was that he had in regression not remembered but relived an attempted abortion. His mother was close to 80 years old, still alive. He calls his mother up, starts to explain what happened, asking her if there was ever a problem with her pregnancy when he was in her belly, and she starts crying hysterically. You can't know these things. No one has ever heard the story. No one knows what happened. And it turns out, and this is back in whatever years, 40s or something, abortion was not legal in America. And I guess the street fix for two youngsters having intercourse and then not wanting to get pregnant, they would take some kind of caustic kitchen cleanser that would fizz and shake up the bottle so as to create pressure, and then squirt the kitchen cleanser up the woman's vagina to kill the sperm. And this is what this woman and her boyfriend at the time, or that man of that night, whatever was happening, we never asked those details, but the two participants, this was how they tried to kill the sperm after they had had intercourse that night. And of course it didn't work. All it did was burn the eyes of the fetus, basically, and that is what this man relived in my chair in the very first session that we did together. And because he was a medical doctor, a surgeon with a lot of credentials, it was instant validity in it for my work. Nobody could, in the medical community, could discount the story as anecdotal, because here they have one of their own saying, it was me, I'm the guy who went through this, and within a week his white cell count had dropped down into the 4-digit range, like around 2,000, and we did a couple more sessions, and it was probably less than 6 weeks before his white cells were right back to normal range. And that is where, that's the fork in the road where I started working with cancer patients, because I had the radio show, and his story was there to be told. It touched a lot of hearts. The story rang true, and the explanations of families that will talk about abortion, for instance, but then never have the abortion, unknowing that the fetus is in that belly listening and feeling the emotions during those conversations. It started striking home to hundreds and hundreds of people, my listeners on that radio show. And all of a sudden I was getting swamped with cancer patients. And that is how my career path reached that point. I never in my life said, boy, I'll bet this hypnosis stuff can heal cancer. It was all an exploration. It only progressed as I would get so effective with one level of ills that the clients coming in would have a mixed bag of the ills I had proven to be able to heal, plus another set of ills of a more extreme and chronic nature. And I would just explain to them, I don't know if I can or not, but my mind model should hold solid for everything you're facing. And of course, I would go in and do the work, and everything would right itself, and the person would heal. So I never made the claim and then did the work. I did the work, got the results, and the reputation spread. That's how I got here. And I would inspire anybody who wants to do healing work in my tradition. I call it the answer cancer philosophies, using the answer cancer philosophies to do their healing or do their hypnosis. I just beg everyone, don't go thinking you're going to come out of the gate like that as a rookie and go right into cancer healing. Start with smoking cessation. Become great at it. Take on tougher and tougher cases. Take on the cases where someone said, I've already been to a couple of hypnotists. It doesn't work. They can't hypnotize me. Figure out how to get that job done when no one else can. And as you work on those tougher cases, then you'll get smokers that come in with depression, phobias. They're using the cigarettes as a mask or a diversionary tool. And then you can tackle those cases. And you don't quit tackling them until you get great at tackling them. And as you do, those cases will come with a layer of ills greater than what you were originally commissioned to heal. And you can walk the same path I walked, but it would scare me to death to think of somebody coming out of a couple-week training class with their eyes on cancer healing. They're going to get in trouble. They're going to get confused. They're going to misrepresent the work. And might they get lucky and heal one or two people? Sure, but you have to be able to do it with consistency, particularly if you're a layman, because you're actually dabbling in the realm of medicine. Cancer, by anyone else's declaration, is a medical issue. We know it's not. That's why the doctors can't heal it. That's why people die, because the doctors don't have any respect for the mutilating and limiting programs that are running in deep inside the cancer patients. But it doesn't matter if we're right. It matters what society currently feels and accepts in their paradigm. So we have to be respectful of that. And the best way to do the work and maintain a respect for the status quo is to just get great at what you do. Then no one can argue. When you get the results first, no one can argue about over credentials or the right of a hypnotist to work with cancer patients or whether the philosophies are accurate or not. If you get the results, it's all proven. No one can argue. So that's where I find myself.
Okay, as far as I understand, when somebody has some illness, we can make psychological connections, illness with some events in life, and not claiming that it can cure, but definitely it will make better. And to what extent better is a question of time. Not question of time, because I can promise anything. I cannot promise anything, but I can make whatever I can.
Right, and that gets into the confidence. How good are you at doing what you say you can do? Because I would say, almost in contrast to that, once someone has shown a gift as a healer, because we're hypnotists, we need mental expectancy. So it becomes important that we want to stay humble, but at the same time, we have to brag a little bit. We have to have the confidence to say, I think I can get this healed. I think I know what's going on in you, not in detail. Your subconscious mind only knows the details. But in respect to the mind model, this is how it works. This is how disease breeds. And I can go in there and clean those mutilating programs out, and we can expect to see you heal. We can expect to see your body right itself and come back to life. You have to be that bold, because without it, you haven't created any mental expectancy, and a hypnotist needs mental expectancy to get a result.
But okay, I understand you, but I cannot lie what I have not done. I know.
Oh, right. Oh, I agree with that. But once again, you don't sell yourself. You sell the mind model.
Yes.
It's not about you. See, just like how we started this interview. I don't want this to be about Steve Parkhill. I want it to be about the technology. I want it to be about the answer cancer philosophies. I want it to be about this incredible mind model we have and the understanding of cellular memory and thought-cause alignments, which I'd love to talk about next. Um, and that way, you don't have to worry about you because you're not selling you. You're selling, this is the mind model that I use. This is how I expect to get results and you can say it this way, as I grow as a healer. Uh, I always, I to this day, I tell people, that if I think I know it all, I'm done. I quit. I'll go fish. Uh, I'm still here because I'm still learning. I'm still growing as a healer, and your case is going to help me advance. So with all my credentials, I don't use all that experience of my past to fluff myself up in the client. I tell them that I'm the same beginner you are. I tell them that, and just like I just said it, your case is going to help me grow as a healer. We're going to get this job done no matter what it takes. Do I know the general philosophies behind your illness? Yes. Do I know anything about the specifics in you? No. That's your subconscious mind and God have those details. I've got the general mind model, and that's what we're going to apply here. So if you notice that, in that little spiel right there, it doesn't matter if you've been practicing 23 years like me, or I think it's more than that now, whatever 1983 is now, or if you've been practicing 27 days. That speech right there works just as well for either one of us.
Yes, and when I'm doing this technique, I feel like how much it can be better, how many things it's possible to do better, and sometimes people. I have a problem when people don't. Sometimes have problem when people don't take out emotions. We find the bad event, not good event, and people sometimes hold emotions.
Oh, sure. Well, that's the wrestling match. In my office, I call my work. I'll always say, when I talk about the regression of cause and what we're there to dig out, I use terms like that: dig out, shovel manure, exorcism. And when I say, and anytime I use that word exorcism, I'll instantly qualify it in the next breath. I'll say, when I say exorcism, I'm not talking about anything in the sense of religious rhetoric. I'm talking about the wrestling match that happens, the tug of war that happens when your mind has been conditioned to hold all this stuff in, and you're paying me to climb in there and dig it all out. That tendency of this powerful part of your mind wanting to hold it in, and me as the professional going in there to grab it by the neck and rip it out, that will make a person twist and writhe and squeak in my chair. And a priest sitting in the side of the room wouldn't say that looked like an exorcism. He'd say, oh my God, I just learned what an exorcism really is. And I've always, in my heart, feel it's not, some kind of unattached soul that was from another person discarded or roaming around with a bad attitude and then jumping into another body. I've never seen any proof that any of that stuff exists. I wouldn't discount it, but I've never seen proof of it. I've seen some pretty weird stuff. But I have seen people vibrate, turn colors, squirt fluids, growl, eyes roll back, facial muscles contort, bodies twist and contort in ways that are absolutely what Hollywood depicts as an exorcism. And it's not some unincarnate soul rattling around in there. It's that wrestling match between me and those emotions as I try to dig them out and the subconscious mind tries to hold them in. And that's how hard you have to work to get the job done sometimes. If it was easy, everybody in their second week of hypnosis training could be running around healing cancer. When I do the last couple workshops I ever did to train students, I would look out at the very beginning of the workshop and I'd say, all of you people are here looking for technology. You want my techniques. You want my the hypnotic tools I use. You want to put them in your toolbox and take them home with you. You're not here for that. You are not here for technology. If you're going to learn what makes my stuff work, you're here to learn tenacity, never giving up, banging your head against the wall 1,000 times if that's what it takes to knock it down. I have less tools in my box, used tools. I have less used tools in my hypnotic toolbox than you beginners, than you intermediates, and a couple of you advanced that are here. You've got way more hypnotic tools. You go to all these workshops. If you come to mine, I know you're going to the others, and you're scarfing up all these tools that you put in your toolbox. I don't use 1/10 of those tools. But the ones I use to dig deep holes in people. And that's what you're here to learn. You're here to learn tenacity. Never give up. Keep chipping away. If a person doesn't emote, it's not because the emotion's not there. It's because you haven't found it yet. You haven't released it yet. You got it. And it's not tricky little NLP techniques that are going to fool a person into it. And if you try to reframe it or desensitize them, you're going to frickin' kill them. This has to be an exorcism. There's no way to further mask emotions and somehow heal the person. You have to dig them out through expression. And that takes work and sweat. And, that's my message to everybody. It's not technology, it's tenacity. You got to keep digging away at it. And eventually you'll get the person healed. It cracks the nut. Something amazing will come out that you missed the first 16 times you went after it. That's where I get my results from. Those special moments that are bred by tenacity.
But okay, and when it's going on, it's not very pleasant for the client, because very unpleasant for client. And
yes.
And I found out for me that better working when it's not going anywhere. Sometimes change it for little bit direct suggestion stuff, and then change it back to regression. So overall feeling should be that he or she could go back later, because sometimes it was when I'm doing it and it's going nowhere. Person leaves with bad feeling and never come back. So somehow redirect something. If I'm
I would. There would be so much. A lot of that is going to be in the details. I'd have to be in the office watching you and know the language to help you course correct there. You're going to have to use your own savvy, your own sense of what's happening, what's right and what's wrong, because that is personal style. That it's a little bit of skill and it's a lot of style that has a person say at the end of a session, like you said, when it was a real wrestling match and not a lot came out, to get a person to say, okay, I saw what that guy was doing. I know what's in me. I need more of this. We need to keep this going. I need to get this job done.
Because it's better out than in.
Exactly. But that's style points. That's your personality, your salesmanship, the clarity and how well you explain the mind model, your empathy for that person's life experience. Do you ahead of time through the pre-talk and through seeing a little bit of how their mind works in the early moments of a session, can you literally in your mind empathize with what this person's been through and how they got so emotionally hardened? And the more you develop that empathy, the better you'll become at keeping the person dedicated to the process. And that takes time. That's, once again, why I beg people, and I would almost say to you, why at this early stage are you career are you working with anything emotional? You should be doing smoking cessation or casual weight loss, where somebody has 20 pounds of weight to lose. Uh, some simple thing over and over and over again. And because, it's not, stopping smoking isn't easy, for instance. Now, once again, I don't know what your culture calls for it. In America, cigarettes have been so vilified that everyone who smokes is being guilted into not smoking them anymore. And now they've just changed the rules where the manufacturers of cigarettes have to, too many people fall asleep with a cigarette lit and burn their houses down. So now the cigarettes have to have fire retardant in the actual paper wrapper of the cigarette, so that if the person doesn't drag on the cigarette every so many seconds, it goes out. And that chemical that they're using in the cigarette paper now just simply doesn't taste good, and smokers don't want to be required to drag on the cigarette every 3 seconds in order to keep it lit. So now we have more cigarette smokers than ever looking to quit somehow, some way. And so I don't know what the culture is doing in Russia, but cigarette smoking doing smoking cessation is a perfect place to really tease and develop your early skills. And there will be cases where the cigarettes have a lot to do with the person's identity, a lot to do with their feelings of security, and without them, they're going to be almost clinically insecure. And even the smoking cessation cases in those situations are going to require regression. They're going to require some sort of healing, not just a removal of the call for cigarettes. So, if you have clients walking out of your office because things didn't go well, I'm going to be bold and say it's probably because you're working on too intense of an ill too early in your career. And I would say back up a little bit if there's clientele. The other thing is, well, Steve, nobody else comes to me. I take what shows up on my doorstep or who rings the phone. And in that situation, I understand. But if you can't, say go back a couple steps.
Okay, but okay, and when person has some not good mood, some feeling not worse enough, not good enough, so it's the same regression, probably. And
say that's why you can start on the lesser ill, because it's the same technology.
Okay, and you were saying, I heard, that the main healer is forgiveness.
Yes, and sometimes that gets oversimplified. It's the last step which makes it the most powerful step. I want to take away powerful, most productive step by someone else's measure. And the reason I harp on forgiveness in the book is because I've noticed that it was not used. I'm the one that sort of took it out of the closet and dusted it off. And everybody was thinking clinically when this goes back to the years when I wrote the book and was offering this message in workshops and so forth. Forgiveness was very obscure. Marianne Williamson hadn't shown up yet on the scene, and with all her metaphysical books. And, it was a revolutionary concept to people. So I was glorifying the forgiveness because people weren't remembering it. It was something they had never heard in a clinical setting. People going for clinical training, even in psychology, weren't hearing anything about forgiveness. So I would talk about it as an equal part of the healing process in my workshops, and nobody'd hear it, nobody'd remember it, nobody bothered to write it down. They didn't understand the importance to it. And so by the time the years came around where I was writing the book or thinking to write the book, I had already started to really shine the light on forgiveness, saying, look, folks, if you're going to do this work, this is a huge step here. If you dig a hole in a person's soul by shoveling out all this manure, you got to fill the void with something. And forgiveness is what you fill the void with to create and to finish up the healing. And So I started having to shout that louder and louder and louder because no one was hearing it. It was too alien a concept. Then metaphysics kicks in and became more popular in the culture. Uh, Even psychology became a little bit warmer and softer in its technologies, and a lot of psychologists started to escaping over to, uh, our side of the fence as hypnotists. And now I'm almost want to tend to go the other direction and downplay forgiveness a little bit, because now people think, well, if I can just get them to, they want to jump right to the last step now and get the forgiveness done, as if it's going to be some panacea, some magic healing agent that needs no assistance. So you'll actually hear my tune change now over time, now that forgiveness has become such a catchphrase in healing. Now I go the other direction. I say, look, you got to understand that it's just one step. It's the a beautiful final step in the process, but it's just one step. Don't think you can skip all the other steps and throw in the forgiveness there and create a miracle. Might it happen now and then? Sure. Any single healing technique can, somehow magically crack the crystal glass of an illness and have it all fall apart. But that's not going to happen day in, day out when you're dealing with 3 patients a day. The process has to be way more sound and cover a much broader host of ills and how they're built. And so that's what always scares me when people hold up a cameo, one healing to say, look, I healed cancer. Well, great. A mother's healed cancer before, innocently, saying something to her neighbor who's just been diagnosed. It gets the neighbor crying like a baby and admitting she cheated on her husband. And I've been holding this in for so long. I knew I had to get it out. And then all of a sudden the woman's breast cancer goes away. Well, a mother healed cancer that day. Does that mean she's qualified to say, yeah, come one, come all, I'll get you healed? No, not even close, because the technology that she used that day as a neighbor and a friend is not going to get the job done, 85 times out of 100 as new patients would come her way. So I always cringe when healers, hold up as some cameo one healing and said, look at me, I healed cancer. No, you did it once. That doesn't mean you're qualified as a professional yet. And I always have to warn people of that, because it drives me nuts, and it happens a lot. So that's that story. But, you want to be able to, whatever you're doing, you want to be able to get the results consistently. That's when you prove how good you are as a professional.
Okay.
And Sasha, I'm going to have to go soon here. It's 9 o'clock now, and or 10 after my time. But we can do more of this. This wasn't a one and done thing. I'm not going to blow you off and never continue this. So, let's end it for now, and you can digest what you've gotten so far.
Yes,
Okay, and we'll have back at it in a couple whatevers. Like next week sometime if you'd like to. I want to give you enough time to digest what you've been given here.
Yes, I need to translate everything of that, and
Okay.
when I will send you link with English version, and when I translate everything, I give you message, and we. Okay, thank you very much, and have a.
And you have a great day as well.
Yes, you too. Bye bye.